too many or too less?
I honestly haven't evaluated, I can't
Fair
answer
enough.
the question.
Okay.
I see some hands
I've got
raising here.
one question here before, it's to either doctor. In the dry season, where it's down to 12 feet, with the demand south of the lake for irrigation, how much will they actually draw off that lake if we have a typical dry season? And how low will it go if it's at 12, say, in December 1st?
In 2007, they took 22 inches.
It's about a foot and a half.
3 quarters.
2 feet. Yeah, it's about, they take about 150 million gallons, which is about 1 foot off the lake, but maybe up to 2 feet every dry
In a
season.
normal year, they take 1
For
foot.
irrigation.
In a drought year, they take 2 feet.
So in a drought year, they take 2 feet, and I think
That's
they
much longer than
Right.
Because they need to keep the canal leveled up so the feet don't stay nice and wet for the sugarcane. We're starting to run long. We've got a few things to finish up the meeting. Take 1 or 2 more questions from Gary.
Yeah.
And Gary will be available as well as Paul after the meeting, so. Joe, you have one last question?
Thank you for the presentation. Once we get everything under control, what is the ability of our estuarine system to recover? And do we need human intervention, and what kind of intervention?
The estuary is losing its resiliency. These discharges, we're going to reach just a terrible milestone in 2023. That'll be the 100th anniversary of these lake discharges. However, the estuary is not responding, is not recovering as it did 50 years ago. Even 50 years ago, after big discharges, you'd see seagrasses come back. Now we don't see that. And so, I was asked on Channel 5, by the way, was doing a nice series called Protecting Paradise. And we spent time, and he kept asking me, well, is the patient dying? I said, look, it's just not, it doesn't have the ability to recover as well. Kind of like me getting old, I'm not recovering as quickly as I used to. But your second part of the question is absolutely correct. It needs human intervention. And I will point out Florida Oceanographic Society is doing 2 things, and other groups are as well. Actually restoring oyster beds, growing the small nursery, the small spats that we refer to, and then replanting those out in the estuaries. That's very, very helpful. The same thing, the Florida Oceanographic Society recruits volunteers that collect fragments of seagrass, take them back to the coastal center, weave those into fibrous mats, and actually goes out and stake those out in the estuary. So the answer to your question is yes, it needs human assistance, and I've mentioned 2 types of activities that I think have a critical role, as does, I make you talk for hours, a living shoreline, as opposed to just concrete bulkheads. So there's a variety of ways that we can help that ailing patient recover a little quicker. Yeah.
I want to add something to that. When I was out with Dr. Witter, she's spoken to a majority of the candidates that are running, and one of the things she has talked about is the living shoreline initiatives and those types of things, and also the need to get to the reinsurers to create the incentive to not build seawalls. Because it's actually more expensive to put a seawall in than it is to do a living shoreline, and they actually last longer and do more protection than what's currently out there. And the group that then needs to be gotten to by both the political folks in the room and whoever is elected becomes our leadership, is to start talking to the reinsurers. Those are the folks that give the money to the insurance companies. And what you're looking at here is trends in how you can reduce their costs, because this becomes a business proposition. If you can get them swayed and then create the incentives, we can build a whole lot more living shorelines than seawalls.
If you want living shorelines, there's pond apples right there. If you can cultivate them.
But that's there's a lot of groups. Florida Oceanographics do a great job. There's several up and down the lagoon that are working very hard on trying to establish living shoreline scenarios, as well as reintroduction of oysters and seagrass and whatever. And it is an intervention process at this point. We're going to have to be actively engaged. I thank everybody for their questions. Dr. Goforth and Dr. Gray will be available afterwards. We're going to move along with our agenda here so that we get everybody out here. here in a timely manner. And so with that, we will go to the River Kids and Nick Mater. Any reports, Nick? There she is.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank Dr. Goforth and students, kids. I'm sure Jackie feels the same way. We believe the kids are definitely the future, and if everybody can please encourage. Okay, and if everybody could please encourage any kid that's, you know, any age kid to vote, but our little ones too, we need to educate them and really do our part. I think that's what the future, it'll make the future a better place, you know, the river, Stuart. I also want to say that River Kids have been active in a few events lately. One of them has been Environmental Studies Center, and another was Rally for the River with Mark Perry and Florida Oceanographic Society. So we've been doing our part out there in the community. If anybody would like toxic algae shirts or stickers or River Kids shirts
Or workbooks.
paraphernalia, Caressa Kernan at Modern Juice Company over in the Home Goods Plaza. She has all the stuff there. If anybody wants information or workbooks, you can pick it up there. I also wanted to talk about Dolphin Ecology Project. I represent them. I didn't stand up because it's kind of, you know, going around the rows here, but I have not been out in 3 months, and one of the reasons is I did watch Toxic Puzzle. I don't know if you all have seen that on Apple TV. I know we've talked about it, but it scared me into going out when we did have blue-green algae out there, just inhaling it. So I was not out, and then my camera is being serviced at Harbor Branch right now, and I haven't gotten it back. So I've been missing the dolphins. If anybody has any dolphin stories or anything going on that I should know about, I would love to hear it, because I'm hoping to get back out on the water soon. And also, Eula Clark had come to us about Gertrude Walden. We are going to deliver the workbooks there and talk to the kids there at Gertrude Walden in the next few weeks. So I have talked to Thelma Washington, and we're all set to do that. And Jackie has anything
And
to
just
add.
thank you also for your donation to the River Kids.
Yeah.
Eula, yeah.
Thank you.
Very good. Our next report will be Todd Weissing from the Speakers Bureau.
Okay.
Barbara?
Yes.
I'm Todd Weissing. I'm the coordinator of the Speakers Bureau, and what our job is we are to bring the message of our organization out to the public. We have 4 speaking engagements. They're all 4 different. We spoke with the Port St. Lucie Anglers Club. Jim spoke there. We spoke at the Allegro Senior Living Facility. Marty spoke there. We've got Seagate Harbor's Homeowners Association with Dan, and then we have the American Association of University Women. Is that a different group? All 4 of them are different. So why am I bringing that up? We compete for the information. We compete for the information. You all are informed, but you all belong to organizations that may not have all the information that you have. We compete with very well-funded organizations that can buy TV ads or can buy ads in the newspaper, and what we need to do is get our message out. That's what we need to do. So my ask is 2 things. 1, if we're ever going to get this to stop, and that's why I asked the question, 9 of the last 15 years, our health department has put warning signs out to where we cannot go in our own watershed. We cannot go in the water. I have kids, I have grandkids, and this upsets me tremendously. 9 of the last 15 years. If it's going to stop, it's going to stop with 2 things, 2 ways. For us and the public and the community to be informed. How do they become informed? Come to our meetings or invite us to come to your meeting. So that's my ask. Second one's vote. This is the time. So please see me. If you have a organization that makes meetings, that needs a speaker, we'll come in there and bedazzle you. All right?
They do a wonderful job. I can tell you that Todd's Speakers Bureau has reached a lot of folks, and we still need to reach a lot more. Diane, government reports. Ms. Diane Hughes from Morgan County.
Thank you, George. Greetings. Hope you're having a great day today. I just wanted to let Gary Goforth know that 72 million is up to 85 million for 39 projects that Martin County has completed. So, So the lake is at 13.92 feet today, so we're finally getting down from those high levels, and we're thankful for that. We still have about 1,500 CFS coming into the lake and about 4,400 CFS going out. And we're getting a lot of evapotranspiration right now, about 3,300 CFS, so that's why the lake is going down so quickly in the past couple of weeks. The discharges from Lake Okeechobee did stop and cease on October 5th. That's just a reminder for you. I've had no blue-green algae reports of observation in the past week. We first had red tide reported on our beaches on September 29th. That was a Saturday. And we have had a few intermittent closures of the beaches based on tides and wind direction, bringing the red tide organism closer to shore. But right now, the policy is that we're going to keep our beaches open for those people that can tolerate the red tide. Some people can. I can't tolerate red tide. I used to go to the West Coast all the time with a bunch of girlfriends. I'm severely impacted by it, but none of my girlfriends were. They were fine to walk up and down the beach. Me, not so much. So, there's also the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission is now putting out a daily map for red tide sampling. If you Google FWC and red tide, you can get to a daily map that you can see for our whole state of Florida. In Martin County, we've only had low and medium levels of red tide. St. Lucie to the north has had some high levels, and Palm Beach County down to the south has had some high levels. Our salinities are finally increasing. We're finally getting up to around 16, 17 on average. Our temperatures have they decreased about 5 degrees over the past weekend. So we're down around 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So hopefully conditions are getting, not suitable for blue-green algae. And all the enterococcus levels have been in the good range for the past couple of weeks. So we're good there. You know that we had the emergency operation where we vacuumed up some blue-green algae. We collected about 25,000 gallons of algae-laden water, and that's all been treated and disposed of. So we're done with that operation, and our contractor has demobilized from Martin County at this point in time. Some of our project updates for River Cove and Jensen Beach impoundment. We are making improvements to parking and access, including pavilions at both of those facilities. Those are under, the design is under review in our growth management department at this time, and we expect them to be constructed by the end of this year. For the Rio Nature Preserve, the design for repairing the damage from Hurricane Irma is complete, and the county will go out to bid for construction next week, and we expect that project to be finished by the end of the year as well. For Perry Beach, I don't know if a lot of you have driven past Perry Beach, but construction is well underway for improvements from the shell rock parking to pervious pavement sidewalks. There's actually enough parking out there for a bus to come out there from the schools for environmental education programs. We now have ADA compliant boardwalks. There's going to be an educational, there is an educational pavilion, and then it has steps down to the water so kids can go singing and sitting at that location. And there's a fishing pier. And in the future, we're still working on this, but the site will also have canoe kayak launch and some educational signage. Construction is going to be complete within the next 6 weeks on Perry Beach, but we're actually going to open access next month, we believe. And that's all I have for now.
Do you know what they do with the toxic algae after they vacuum it up?
So what we did was the algae was put in frac tanks and was taken and staged at our wastewater treatment plant. They then treated the algae-laden water. They filtered it through some bag filters and everything. They got the solids into one tank, and then they had the effluent waters in another tank, and they treated the water down with chlorine to try to reduce the microcystin levels. And then they actually mixed it with the brine from the wastewater treatment plant, and then was deep well injected at that facility. The solids were got dried enough, and those were taken to the Okeechobee landfill.
Thank you.
Jane, can you tell us, you were doing some air sampling when you were doing the vacuuming of that algae. Did you get the report on what the results were of the air sampling?
Yes, I believe they were below detection limit. There was, they were below detection limit. That's something. Perfect. Thank you.
You said the lake is currently
Yes.
When was the last time it was at 10?
Maybe Paul or.
2011, it went down almost to 9.
That's the last row.
2007 and 8, it went to 9. When Todd was showing that figure about the algae,
2007, 8, and 11, it went down below 10, close to 9. And when Todd was showing the 9 out of 15 years, yeah, so you notice of the 6 years you didn't have health warnings, 3 of them were those extreme low years and there were no reviews. So
So I
that
guess
gets
it's
back to what
time,
the, what Representative Mass is talking about, is a low lake helps the estuary.
And aren't all these years directly correlated to Lake Okeechobee releases?
I think so.
Pretty much, yeah.
I'm just wondering what happened to 14 and 15, but anyway, I'd have to look at it.
Those dates, as we see, what's happened here in Lake Okeechobee is about 6,000 years old. And what's happening as the lake ages and develops the high nitrogen and phosphorus content, most of which is in the mud, the sediment, you'll get more of these every year. So that we should expect, from a historical point of view, lakes will generally do this year after year after year. In 1985, I said to the South Florida Water Management District, you're not going to improve Lake Okeechobee water quality unless you deal with the sediments. And until the sediments of Lake Okeechobee are literally sucked out, and they can be if the lake goes low, especially to Representative Mass' proposal, then when the mucks are dry, they can be taken out, and that will improve the lake a little bit. Because there's so much muck below 10 feet. Roughly 101 million pounds of total phosphorus in the top 4 inches of the mud. That's not fun. That's what's causing the problem. Also, besides what Gary said.
You're next on the floor. Okay, Paul doesn't, we've got him again, but he said he has nothing new to add on to what he's seen so far. Mark Perry.
Yeah, I think that as far as the state and federal agencies update, and then I don't think Rivers Coalition Defense Fund, Charles is not here today, so we'll skip that. I'll just do that and local issues, just to get it wrapped up quick, because I know we gotta go. The state and federal agencies, the district governing board, our RAC meeting was on October 4th, and then the board meeting was October 11th. There were a lot of citizens that went there on October 11th and the 4th. I appreciate sitting with them and made comments. So it was really good to have more people vocal at these meetings. I really appreciate, I know it's a drive down to West Palm, but those of us who represent organizations or can go, it really does help. The next governing board, RAC meeting is November 1st on Thursday, and then the following Thursday, November 8th, is the governing board for the district. And again, if there's agendas ahead of time, you can look on their website, get the agenda for the public meeting, and you can see if there's anything critical coming up, or call one of us and work that out. As far as updates, local issues and stuff, as we said, the lake's up there about 13.92. And as you heard, about 1,500 CFS coming in, that's about 1 billion gallons a day coming in, and about 4,000 cubic feet a second going out. That's about 2.8 billion gallons a day going out. Now, it's going out to the EAA for water supply. And we talked about their irrigation needs from the lake a moment ago, about 1 to 2 feet off the lake. That's about 150 billion gallons a day for 1 foot. So 150 billion gallons for 1 foot. So basically what they're taking every year from about November through May during the dry season is water supply from the lake. And they take that, use that for irrigation. That does not go south of the EA, doesn't go through the STAs and into the Everglades or Florida Bay. So the point of trying to work with an EA storage reservoir south of the lake is to get that water from the lake, moving to the storage treatment, and move it south to the Everglades. It needs it during the dry season. But to mention about the local issues, I mean, because of the discharge is stopped as of October 5th, they made a decision, a 3-week decision, the Corps did, for these past 3 weeks, which will end tomorrow. But we're hoping that, based on the call on Tuesday, that they'll continue this schedule of no releases to the S80 or St. Lucie, and they're minimizing or ratcheting down the releases to the Lucie. So that's a good thing. Our grades locally have gotten better as water quality parameters we measure. But as mentioned about the resources, this is the Roosevelt Bridge. You can see on the left-hand side that back in May when the salinities were up at normal at Roosevelt, about 20 to 25 parts per thousand, how critically they dropped middle of May and June when they started discharges. But notice the end of the graph after September, they started those pulse releases. You remember we had pulse releases for 2 days stop and then 5 days on. That helped in September, but in October 5th, you can see dramatically how it started to come back up. So we're encouraged by salinity coming up. Unfortunately, seagrasses losses and other habitat losses are very critical. As you can see from 2010 to 17, those flats out there are pretty barren. I was out there this past weekend. However, I looked around and saw a lot of brown areas. I got close to them. There's some algae growing on the surface of the sands. But there's also some small halophila, which is a small paddle grass. It's only about so big, covered almost about 15 acres, 20 to 15. And I was very encouraged because not only is the paddle grass coming back, but there's also queen conch out there. And there are several queen conch, and they were actually higher density of queen conch at those grasses. So they're telling me that they're grazing on them. Remember, queen conch are protected as a species, so don't go collect them. They're living animals, and we're at the northern limit for a lot of them. They're tropical in nature, so if you see them, they kind of look like a rock on the bottom. You turn them over, and they're that beautiful queen conch on the inside. Put the animal back and just tell everybody around, just saw some queen conch, it's exciting. So let's get encouraged by that. As you know, the sampling for blue-green algae continues. They haven't seen anything in the lake as of recent, so they're kind of minimize that. But the red tide, as was mentioned, are kind of going on a weekly and daily basis. The critical thing when you look at that map that's on the East Coast, as mentioned, this is one of 9 events that have gone north around the state and over to us out of the 57 red tide events. We've got 9 of those on the East Coast, and it goes pretty far up to Brevard County. And you've heard of fish kills, people getting spotty areas. Yesterday, we could walk over Stuart Beach and got hit like a ton of bricks, but then today it's not there. So it's spotty and patchy up and down. One of the things we don't know, like blue-green algae, are the long-term effects. We're learning more about BMAA and other long-term effects from exposure, but the red tide exposure, we're not quite sure. It's a neurotoxin. It has very acute effects, meaning you get respiratory arrest pretty quick if it's airborne. But what are the long-term? What about the people that work there, lifeguards, people that work on the beach situation? If they're exposed and then non-exposed and for longer duration, we still don't know those long-term effects. So we're hoping to continue that kind of research into that, as well as the research on how do we stop it. And we know that perhaps, as mentioned, that the long-term things or things change in our environment over long-term periods that we may not have any control over. But there are human-induced impacts like nutrient loading and other things that we do have control over. So if we can research and find out what those human-induced things that are causing these kind of algae blooms, we need to get that research done and stop that, take action to stop that at the source of the problem. And yes, there are going to be these long-term things that occur over a long-term climate problem, but we need to get those acute things done quickly and research and find those out. Just lastly, I want to appreciate everybody came out to the Rally for the River here at Flagler Park. We learned a lot about stuff of what you can do to protect our waterways and save our waters. You can also ask the candidates questions. And I believe Michelle Burrell from our office, FOS, has those to hand out at the end over there. And if you're interested in helping with the oyster reefs or seagrass restoration, as was mentioned, please see us, and we'd be glad to hook you up to the next event. So thanks for the local look.
Thank you, Mark. Amazing number. One guy can do everything. He's either between meetings or whatever. He's the busiest guy in town. They're the ones that get the most done. All right, Indian River Keeper update. Marty. I know you don't need the mic.
Yeah.
I attended Eyes Across the Lagoon at Florida Oceanographic. We had about half of the people canceled because the wind picked up to about 15 or 20 knots. But once again, it was good fellowship. We had clams, we had grits. We talked about the lagoon and the Indians and how it was hundreds of years ago. I also attended the River Rally, and I gotta tell you that I've never been more impressed by all the activities that Florida Oceanographic and the River Kids put together to engage our children. Everywhere I looked, the kids were hands-on, and there's nothing better on God's earth than watching the kids hands-on and being empowered by ownership. I've been having an ongoing conversation about efforts of some folks at Johns Island to horizontally bore underneath our lagoon and pump gray water from the mainland out to there to spread on our golf courses and such. We've been up there 3 times fighting this thing. We really thought last time we had finally won the thing, but conversations are happening that Johns Island, with all their money, are hiring more experts and more attorneys, so we're going to be back at it. The peril is if the pipe leaks tomorrow or 15 years down the road, it's going to be leaking in a superficial aquifer that provides water for thousands of people, and once it's contaminated, it's going to remain that way for generations. Incidentally, there is a fault that runs all the way across the state of Florida in a diagonal, and this pipe would cross that. Incidentally, the ASR that they want to pump at the top of the lake, they will be right on top of that fault when they do that. Been talking to Warren Falls at Orca, and I haven't heard anything that I like. Carina Brevis is not only along our shores at levels not seen before in this event, but it is entering our lagoon through the Fort Pierce Inlet, bringing in its toxins and dead fish that subsequently get pushed south by our northeast wind. Thankfully, that toxic water has not moved north into our nurseries and our grass flats up there, so maybe our nursery won't lose all of its fish. The bad news from him is that yesterday it was detected coming in the Sebastian Inlet. Now, I spoke at length 3 days ago to NBC News. They're very interested in this, and I hooked them up with Orca. I'm hoping like the devil that they come down here and talk to Edie so that I don't know anybody that does a better job of scaring you. I mean, Edie is just like remarkable. Ahead, I've been in conversations with Betty Osceola, and I'm proud to tell you that the Rivers Coalition has invited them to come speak to us at our next meeting. Now, that may not work out. They may have conflicts of interest and such, but I don't know of anybody who has reached out to them like we have here. So this is good news for us, I believe. Florida Waterkeeper has been working really hard to become our own entity. We have 14 waterkeepers in Florida. We're split down the middle, half in South Atlantic, half in Gulf. We've been working hard to become our own entity so we don't have to go through all these other people to make decisions for ourselves. You might recall that a couple months ago, 8 of Florida's 14 waterkeepers sat down at the table with FDEP. This will give us a much stronger singular voice, and we will be able to make decisions that are exclusive to Florida and not just the East Coast and the Gulf of Mexico. November 3rd at John Stretch Park on the south side of Lake Okeechobee, the Miccosukee Indians will be having a Healing Our Relationship with Our Water event. There'll be prayer and Miccosukee ceremonies to bring us together to send healing energy to Mother Earth's water. This is similar to a visit that was paid to us a couple years ago by the Reverend Houston Cypress, where they collected water from 13 watersheds that feed the Everglades. He drew the water with prayers and ceremony. They took it down to a prayer room at Love the Everglades. Several Miccosukee and other Indian shamans and medicine people prayed over this water. They mingled the waters. People wrote notes and wrote prayers. He brought the water back, and we read all these prayers written by all these people before we put the waters back in. It's really an interesting thing to observe, and if you got the time, it really might be worth learning about how they go about being concerned about our water. Later this month, Indian River Keeper will help sponsor a showing of Toxic Puzzle with the Pahokee Sierra Club. This showing is designed to help our neighbors south of the lake to better understand the dangers being faced by all of us in our toxic water. Dr. Larry Brand will be there. As attendance is very limited, This event is geared towards those citizens who live south of the lake, so it's not something that they would want to see a bunch of us take up the seats. Let's see, November 10th, I'll be attending the Loxahatchee Sierra meeting as their guest of honor, and will be receiving some recognition for my advocacy. November 13th, I speak at Neville's Island, and I have 3 calls with Waterkeeper Alliance this week. One of them is for the Waterkeeper Florida. The other one is the Swimmable, Drinkable, Fishable Waters Initiative, and it seems like every time that comes around, our water's too doggone toxic to show pictures of us swimming in it. And then we have a legislative and regulatory failure initiative where we're trying to influence our legislators. So we'll see what happens. Thank you very much.
Just to wrap things up, we have a few member announcements. I know Sherry Anchor has one, and if anybody else has any, we'll pass the mic.
Hi, if you didn't get a chance, I think it was last year when Florida Oceanographic Society and the Surf Riders hosted a plastic ocean. If you didn't get a chance to see that film, the Conservation Alliance and Shell's back there, the Florida Oceanographic Society and the Surf Rider Treasure Coast are hosting a showing at Indian River State College at the Kite Center. It is tomorrow night. It begins at 6:30. If you go to the Conservation Alliance of St. Lucie County's website and you go under events, you can sign up there or also on Facebook. Thank you.
Any other member announcements? I see a couple back here.
Oh, I don't need a. Okay, I just can't leave here today without reminding everybody to please vote. And on the state level, I'm not going to mention any names, but on the state level, I certainly hope that you people who know everything because you're here all the time and you listen to all these wonderful men and women who inform us, do not reward any candidate for 8 years of bad behavior. Thank you.
I just want to take a minute to tell you a little bit about the pet situation. I practice veterinary medicine in Indian River, Marks, and St. Lucie County, and your pets are not safe yet. That's the take-home message. We don't know a lot of the long-term effects of all this stuff, but it is being studied. In 2 weeks, George and Edie are coming to the Treasure Coast Veterinary Medical Association, along with a board-certified veterinary internal medicine specialist and a local pathologist who I didn't even know lived in Stuart. So it's going to be an exciting thing. They told me I wouldn't be able to do this because I had to raise over $5,000, and they told the wrong person.
The Martin County chapter of Florida Native Plant Society, November 6th, we're going to have an interesting meeting, and we'll be talking about aquascaping for home ponds and wetlands. And also on November 10th, we're going to be doing a field trip to some of the public ponds and wetlands. And our speaker is, and I know I'm going to